I'm a DJ boy, going to Dcentral, making NFT, from the values, being crypto poor but JPay rich.
So, we have a very interesting and intriguing investment heavy panel coming up. We haven't had one of these before, so what does it mean to be investing in this Web3 space? And beyond that, what does Web3 even mean? Well, let me welcome to the stage our moderator to begin a discussion on just that. So please, to the stage come Mr. Aaron Malone. Woo!
What's up, Austin? Dcentral. So many people here in this bear market. Well, that's okay. All of us builders are really excited to be here because this is the best time. There's the fewest distractions, and the people who really, really believe and deserve to have the best outcome are still here, and that's all of you sitting in the audience today. So give yourselves a round of applause before we get started, because you're awesome. In addition to all of you, the awesome people here on our panel, we have Miko Matsumura from Gumi Crypto's Capital. Thank you very much for being here. We have Patricia Auer from Brinc. We have Yavin from Cointelligence Fund, excuse me. And Joanna Liang from Jsquare. And they've flown from all over the world to be here. We've got Singapore, Hong Kong, San Francisco, from everywhere, all traveling all the time to all these things. So fortunately, I only had just a few-hour drive down here. I got lucky this time. And we're going to be talking about structuring investments in Web3. Web3 is one of these sectors in crypto that you may or may not have heard about, but essentially we're reinventing the internet. Web 1 is email, websites, bulletin boards. Boring, but revolutionary for its time. Web 2 is what we have today. We have social media, streaming video, but it's all controlled by the hands of a few. And that presents many, many problems, especially when it comes to censorship and equal opportunity. So, the brilliant minds in the crypto universe who were creating decentralized money also thought, let's decentralize everything. And Web3 started being planted, and it's still very much being watered today. There's some things that have sprouted, but not a whole lot. And we're going to be learning about what the different sectors in Web3 are and how we can potentially invest and become part of this movement. So first and foremost, I want to define some terms because everyone up here does something a little bit different. And I want you guys to understand the people who are backing Web3 and helping founders and developers really take the next steps forward. So first of all, I'd like you to define what is a venture capitalist in this space, and what is it that you guys do?
Thank you for the question. So it obviously depends on who you're asking. In our industry, every second person is a venture capitalist and an investor, of course. But to be serious, usually a venture capital invests in startups. Some venture capitalists are investing in early stage startups, as Cointelligence Fund is doing. Some are more focused on later stages, and some are doing both. Usually, it means that it's investing in startups, but that definition can be changed as well. And specifically with regards to Web3 and the metaverse, the VCs that are focused on investing in these startups are focused on investing in the projects that we all hear about in recent times, and you have a lot of headlines of huge funding operations going on into Web3. We see a lot of the traditional VCs that are also investing in Web3 projects these days. And obviously, I can keep talking about this for hours, but I'll let the others join in.
Very good, very good. Okay, Patricia, what is a blockchain accelerator? What do you guys do?
So Brinc is a venture capital firm as well that runs an accelerator. And the accelerator is essentially, I like to say, it's kind of like an executive MBA. We accelerate your growth. We help you with whatever you need. We often get confused with an incubator, which is really a slight difference in terms of the stage that you're at. So an accelerator looks at companies pre-Series A that have an idea, a business plan, but really need help to accelerate their growth, whereas an incubator tends to focus on help on ideation.
Brilliant. And Miko, can you tell us, what does a hedge fund do in this space?
Yeah, so I'm actually with a venture capital fund, but a hedge fund in the blockchain space will actually address liquid instruments like tokens, right? So typically a hedge fund strategy will be trading. But my side of it is more early stage venture capital.
Yes. And Joanna, what is a launch pad?
Yeah, so actually I'm also with venture capital, but we do work a lot with launch pads and we do invest a lot of launch pads as well. I think to be short, the most crucial functionality for a launch pad is to do the token issuance. That is to enlarge the community base and to gain more traction in the open market.
Thank you very much. So you see there's many different pieces behind the scenes that are required to launch a project. It's not just a guy in a basement anymore with a dream. There's a lot of different channels to go through and at different stages as well. So let's talk a little bit about at what stage founders should even approach companies like yours. You mentioned all of you are into venture capital, etc. Let's start with Joanna. Tell us, to the founders who are out there, at what point should they come to you? What should they have ready at that point?
Actually, as a venture capital, we welcome all types of companies in space. In terms of projects, I think it is welcome for projects at any stages to come to us for the investment or for any value services or something like this. And besides that, we also welcome a lot of cooperation opportunities with different kinds of exchanges, the communities, launch pads, as just mentioned, and accelerators. Yeah.
That's great. And Miko, what about for you guys over at Gumi Crypto's Capital?
Yeah, so our preference is that entrepreneurs approach us before anyone else.
There you go.
That's a good strategy.
First call to Gumi. And how about you, Patricia?
So for us, we look at seed or pre-Series A stage. So anyone really that has an idea, a little bit of a fleshed out business plan, a roadmap, who's within the blockchain space. We have several different verticals. And also who we call game changers. So there's part of our investment thesis is social impact, ESG and sustainability. So anyone within an angle to that, but definitely seed pre-Series A stage.
Fantastic. And how about you guys over at Cointelligence?
So for us, it's mainly very early stages. It can be seed, even pre-seed, but also private rounds. Also, it is very important for us when a team approaches us that they are actually a real team. Because if just, for example, one founder approaches us and we know that he will need at least 2-3 other co-founders, that can be an issue. It can also be in more advanced stages, but usually we prefer the early stages. And I'd like to add one more thing about what Miko mentioned before about the hedge funds. It's very interesting that with crypto, potentially every VC is also a little bit of a hedge fund because of the liquidity of the tokens. And it's something that makes crypto VCs very, very unique compared to other types of VCs. And the last point that I would like to mention is when not to approach. And I'm serious now. Don't approach when you copy-pasted another project and you actually think that it's going to work out. These days are over. It doesn't really work anymore. So don't do it. Make your own projects. Don't copy-paste.
Very, very well said. So the main takeaway for me is every VC is different. You can't just really approach one and have the same conversation. They all have their own thesis, their own sectors they're looking for. So if you get turned down 9 out of 10 times, don't get discouraged. It may just not have been a good fit, and you will find a good fit because there are thousands of VCs out there for just about everything, except for copy-paste projects. Those are all gone. Let's talk about Web3. What does Web3 really look like to you? Like, paint us a picture of the future when Web3 is here. On, if you would start, for please.
So it's really easy for me to answer, especially since I'm already there for about 15 years. I'm spending at least some time every day in the metaverse. People think that the metaverse is something new. It's not new at all. It's been around for at least 20 years now. But with regards to the new type of metaverse that is supposed to be decentralized, and by the way, I'm saying supposed to be because most blockchains, most projects out there are not really decentralized. They say that they are, but they're not. But let's say that we will get to the point where it will be decentralized, similar to Bitcoin, for example. The metaverse will be decentralized. We will be spending a lot of our time in the metaverse. We will be doing, I would even take the risk and say, most of the things that we're doing today online in the metaverse. And that leads to the question if it must be based on avatars or not. And that's a completely different discussion. And the last point is that I think that the most important part, and that's something that is being talked around a lot in the industry and the crypto community, is the fact that we are going to own everything ourselves. We're not going to use someone else's platform and be there. We're going to be a part of the platform in some capacity. Obviously, our identity, obviously everything that we own in the metaverse will be owned by us for real, and not pretend to, as it is now with today's metaverses. Yeah, it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to see what's coming in the next few years.
That's great. And Patricia, what else do you see coming? What trends are you seeing in development right now that are going to become part of our lives later on?
So for me, I'm really interested in the sustainability ESG space, and that's something that definitely I'm seeing more of, even in terms of applications to the accelerator. And I think, blockchain is a great use case for all of this type of stuff, and really that's where we can have a massive impact for the real world, so that those of us who don't want to necessarily live in the metaverse, 24/7, can still have the beauty that we have here. So that's something I'm very excited about. But I think for me, to answer the original question, I'm interested to see whether the ethos and the ideology underpinning Web3 is really going to survive. So true decentralization, true ownership for each and every individual person. If you look at, so I'm an ex-lawyer, if you look at some of the terms included in, for example, PFP projects, which have some very hefty legal rights attached to the creator, it doesn't sit in with the ethos of actually owning your digital asset, decentralization and all of this type of stuff. So for me, I think it's interesting to see what's going to happen with that. And I think to me, we've fully arrived in Web3 when all of these concepts become an absolute reality for every single project out there.
Yeah, well said. Miko, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think one of the big things that I think the bear market managed to eat is the bear has eaten WAGMI, which is, it's one of the funny framings I have. So WAGMI is, we're all going to make it, right? So my twist is, we're all going to make it after the ones that aren't going to make it are removed, right? Which, so to me, I think the most important message is that Web3 is a big tent. And as a big tent, when the weather gets bad, everybody comes inside. So now we're sitting under a tent where lots of people are huddled for safety from this bad weather, right? Except not all of the people are doing anything meaningful, right? So to me, like, not to be a negative Nelly, but to me, like, I think that there's a reckoning, and I think that we definitely have to try to be grounded in what we're doing, right? So for me, I think the things that are fairly non-negotiable are things like ownership. So I think ownership is going to be redistributed, and then I think obviously what's atomic is self-sovereign identity, self-sovereign data privacy, right? Data ownership as well as economic ownership, right? So I think that's Web3. And then I think everything else, we'll see.
All right. Joanna, what would you like to add?
Yeah, so actually for me, I think there is no finality for Web3, but we are always on the way to it. So what makes me most exciting is that I think there are two areas that can create a lot of like disruptive changes in the future. The first is DeFi, including financial services, DEX, and so on. Because let's take into the account of the current data. There are around 1.6 billion people who are unbanked in the world right now. So it actually creates a huge opportunity for us, for our Web3 world, to create such solutions for those people. And so this is the first thing. And the second thing, as all the panelists have already mentioned, I think Metaverse will be another very, very promising thing in Web3 world, because I think the base and fundamentals for Metaverse is actually data. So for data ownership, data disposal rights, and so on. Yeah, that's my answer.
Sounds good to me. I think metaverses are eventually going to replace websites. That's going to be the next thing. So you go to whatever.com, and it's going to take you into a virtual world where you're not just reading blocks of text or seeing tons of ads. You're going to get to walk through a town and talk to the different people in the company in real time from anywhere in the world. So that's really exciting. And I think the other Web3 component that hasn't been mentioned yet that I want to bring up is DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, where you can have a company with people anywhere in the world and have an entity that represents these people and their interests that's literally borderless and unstoppable. That's really powerful. So that's what we're looking for in Web3. There's lots of different market sectors. There's also infrastructure, decentralized cloud compute, streaming platforms, payment systems. It's decentralizing everything that we already use today and trying to make it a little bit better, a little bit more fair, and redistributing the profits out of Wall Street and into our own pockets. I think that's really what the soul of Web3 is about. Would you guys agree? Fantastic. And we talk a lot about, in our community at Crypto 101, about separating the noise from the signal, because there's so much out there. There's a new NFT mint every 5 seconds, it seems like, that's clogging up Ethereum. I want to ask the professionals over here, when you're doing your research and due diligence, what are some of the data sets that you look at to say this is a good project versus maybe something I want to pass on? Joanna, can you give us some of your secret sauce?
Oh, okay. So you mean, I think, can I understand this question as when I determine the market status or just the project?
Technical analysis, you can look at on-chain data, you can be reading white papers, you can just be investing in founders only, regardless of what they're doing. What's the secret, path to success for you?
Yeah, actually, I think for projects, for most of the projects, it is hard to answer because a lot of the projects cannot, like for infrastructure projects and for some tooling solutions, it is so hard to determine the data side at the beginning of the project period. But I would like to say more about my thesis or understanding about how we evaluate the market. Yeah. So actually we have a lot of indicators and the KPIs and the charts in the market right now, and the sentiment and so much things that that hits up on our mind every day. And so I think all of these indicators are pretty important to us. But I think what is most important to everybody is that you need to have an understanding of, to have a benchmark of your recognition on the market status right now. Whether this is a bull market or a bear market. So this actually leads to your decision on how you will allocate your position. And so this is the first important point. And the second is, after you determine the long-term market and where we are at right now, then we need to determine the short market, the market in the short run. Like if the market has gone down for several weeks or several months, and what's the next? And maybe there will be a short rebound, and how you will react, and will you seize the opportunity or not?
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's a time to buy, a time to sell, and a time to build.
True.
I'd like to provide a very strong counterpoint, which is my style of investing is almost antithetical. So we don't actually care if it's a bull market or a bear market. We don't actually care if the price is going up or if the price is going down. And we don't actually pay any attention at all to any sentiment indicators or analysis of any of those things. Like what we look for is first and foremost team. So we really focus very hard on team. A lot of what we care about with team is conviction. So we want to see ultra high conviction. We also want to see founder market fit. So team is very primal for us. And then right below team is the problem solution dyad. So if it's a really meaningful problem solution, then we're pretty excited about it. So that's our style. So we are very much kind of long-term, builder aligned, kind of high conviction investment capital. So it's a very, very different style, but that represents kind of what we do.
That's great. Patricia, how about you?
Yeah, so I would echo those sentiments. For us, it's I would put team and kind of the problem that it solves on the same level in terms of how important that is. Obviously there's always execution risk, but if you have a good founding team who's done something great before, and then in addition to that has solved a problem in a unique way, those are kind of the two main ones for me. Obviously there are other factors, depending on what stage they are, again, looking at financials and revenue and things, but really, like I said, for me, I think the main importance is really team and kind of the problem that they solve and how uniquely they solve it.
That's great. On, how about you?
So with regards to the different signals, obviously there are some signals that can help you a lot to make decisions, and I'm specifically talking about traders that are trading cryptocurrencies. But I can tell you that if someone tells you that they can actually time the market exactly, they are scammers, complete scammers, because there's no such thing with crypto. And obviously you can take the recent Luna crash as an example, that all the giants had no idea that it's coming.
Except Celsius, who pulled out. They pulled out at the right time.
No comment. With regards to the way that we specifically see it, since we are a VC, we don't care about the market situation. Actually, founders are a bit surprised when they are reaching out to us in the last week to 2 weeks that we are responding to them, yeah, everything is as usual, business as usual, and we don't care about the market conditions. But that's because we are a VC, and it's important to make the distinction. Now, beside that, I'll continue what my fellow panelists said about the team. It's definitely the team before anything else. There's no doubt about that. But I do want to add one important thing. When I say team, it's not just that we are looking at the team and to make sure that the team is solid. It's much, much more than that. It's the fact that the team is actually capable of managing a crypto startup. Now, the huge difference between a crypto startup and a traditional startup, or as I call them, the old style startups, is that with crypto, not only you are innovating and creating something completely new, You also need to choose the right blockchain for you. You also need to know how to plan your token economics, which is where most crypto startups completely fail, including the big companies out there, by the way. And the third example that I would like to give you is not only they have to understand all of that and they need to really understand the tech, they need to know how to do crypto marketing. Crypto marketing is completely different compared to traditional marketing. And even professional marketeers don't understand what I just mentioned. And I know this firsthand because I interviewed so many of them. So my advice to founders, don't even reach out to investors before you are sure that you qualify for these parts.
That's great advice. And I think the main takeaway here is, despite all of these people being experts, they have their own style, and you should find what works for you too. Study all the different sectors of Web3 and become an expert in just the one or two that really stick out to you, that you feel passionate and conviction about. You don't have to put together a portfolio of 30 completely different things that have nothing to do with each other that you don't understand anything about. Become very, very focused, have a thesis, stick to it, and there's no one right way to do things in crypto. So I want to thank our panelists here, and thank you, Dcentral, so much for giving all of us a place to exchange ideas, and we'll see everyone around. And if you want to learn some more, listen to the Crypto One podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, everyone.
Thank you.